fucking Game of Thrones, fucking Game of Thrones, fucking Game of Thrones, fucking Game of Thrones, yeah, Game of Thrones, yeah, Game of Thrones, Game of Thrones, fucking Game of Thrones, fucking Game of Thrones, fucking Game of Thrones, yeah, Game of Thrones, yeah, it's the Game of fucking Thrones, fucking Game of Thrones, fucking Game of Thrones, fucking Game of Thrones, fucking Game of.
Hello, welcome to Super Geeks special Game of Thrones show, which is called Throne of Geeks. And this is episode 5, which I found out if you just go right to Wiki, you can find out the episode title without having to keep refreshing. Because Wiki seems to release that very early in the episode.
The internet is cool.
Yeah, it's called The Bells, episode 5 of season 8, the final season. And this episode we're going to be talking about because, well, it was interesting. With me today, as usual, I'm Lord Commander George of the Geeks Watch. With me is Raul the Baelish? Is that what you're calling yourself now?
Raul Baelish. Thank you very much.
All right. How are you doing, Raul?
Of the fingers.
Well, let's not go there. Oh, okay. Anyways, and then with us is also Lord Carlos of House Harumph. How are you, Carlos?
I'm ready for action.
And then
we shall not feel joy. That's his motto.
Doesn't want to hear the bells go. For whom the bell tolls, Metallica, you're going to get a lot of.
George, it tolls.
Metallica should be trying to get royalties from this episode. Shawn,
Time marches on. Dun, 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 dun.
I would I can't make that.
Oh, man, Lollapalooza '94, man. Oh man.
Oh wow.
Shawn Snow, also the guy with the fox hawk. How are you doing, Shawn?
Awesome, man. I'm doing great. I'm wow from well, just wow.
People are bitching, but I don't care. The reason I know that people are bitching is because I predicted this. They just don't want to see. It doesn't matter how their favorite characters die. If they die,
I don't think it's that simple, though, George.
Well, we'll talk about that. So this was. I'm gonna tell you right now. This is a 10 for me, but I'll get into why.
Thanks, folks. Have a good night.
Have a nice night. But George is at a 10. I'd go higher. But for me, I'm going to say this real quick, and then I'm going to ask the next person to just go for it. For me, the thing that stands out in my brain is because I enlisted in the military in the middle of Desert Storm, I remember how everybody was expecting there's going to be another Vietnam. All of a sudden, it was like they gave him a deadline, and Bush gave him a deadline, and then boom, it was like they called it shock and awe. I remember back in 1991, shock and awe, and it didn't last long because they underestimated what the United States could do. It's also similar to an analogy I would make about the Pearl Harbor thing, where you woke the sleeping dragon when Japan did that, and literally the sleeping dragon wasn't sleeping, but it's kind of an interesting metaphor. So basically, I love the one-sidedness of what happened. It pleased the shit out of me. I love it when the protagonists, like in Steven Seagal movies, or when Superman beat up Steppenwolf in the Justice League movie. I like it when they are OP and they just go in and kick, and they go, I'm going to kick your ass, and they do it, and they don't even break a sweat. And then where it goes from there is where things get interesting, because at a certain point, she had everything handled, but then that's where the episode gets interesting. So I want to start off, I'm actually going to start with Carlos this time. Carlos, just talk about all the things that stuck out in your head like we did the last one, or episode 3, I should say, and just kind of say what you got to say.
Well, I'm still kind of processing it. In some ways, I feel like it was all too easy.
That's the point.
And is it really? Because, all of a sudden these things that were weaknesses 1 episode ago, they managed to evade them, and they shouldn't have been weaknesses back then.
I think that's the point, because of Desert Storm.
But it's not the point, George. I mean,
Cersei was overconfident.
Well, yeah, she was. But the thing is that they had proven that these defenses were effective against a dragon, and then all of a sudden they're not.
I will agree with you on that. Go ahead. Keep going.
Well, and
as far as the crossbows go,
the scorpions, yeah.
I mean, she got lucky. She just kept evading them, but
yeah, but I think it had to be more than luck, because why didn't you do that before? We talked a lot last week about, about the weaknesses of those scorpions. Let me finish, George.
Sorry. It's an excitable episode. Go ahead.
Yeah, definitely. And all of a sudden, the things that we talked about last week, we see come to pass. That's the angle of attack. That it's, the ruthlessness of how Danny was pressing the attack. In some ways, the infantry battle parts were, they weren't that exciting because they were almost inconsequential, not completely, but they felt in some ways really inconsequential. And the fact that these armies refuse to listen to Jon Snow, I think, is problematic. So I had some issues with this episode around some of those things, not because of what happened in the episode, but because of problems established prior to this episode. If they had dealt with those problems back then, this episode would have made more sense. But there's a real disconnect, I think, between what we saw earlier this season and then what we saw in this episode. So I'm setting that aside for now and looking at sort of the bigger picture, which is the fall of King's Landing, the end of Cersei, the fact that Cersei, I'm still not sure how I feel about her and Jaime dying underneath the Red Keep.
They were born into this world together and they died together.
Well, no, I get that, George, but it didn't feel very satisfying to me.
A lot of people are saying that online. I agree. Yeah.
And it didn't feel like poetic justice. It didn't feel like real justice. It just felt, I don't know, kind of pathetic in a way. So I have issues with that. The Euron thing, nothing kills that man, I guess, except Jaime Lannister. But it just seemed a little convenient that he should show up right at that beach, right at that time to fight, have that exact battle with, Cersei's other lover, I guess. But Game of Thrones does that kind of coincidental thing all the time. So, I'm willing to look past that. But I didn't feel a lot of investment in that battle because we'd never really seen what Euron thought of Jaime. It was just like this. The stakes weren't very high other than Jaime was trying to get to Cersei, and I guess Euron was in his way, but it just didn't feel like the stakes were very high.
Before we go to somebody else, I just want to respond briefly to what you just said. The biggest stand-up for me that I want to point out is that they, when it comes to Jaime, a lot of people complain that they built up how he was in redemption arc and then he just went backwards. Well, I compare that to a falling off the wagon when someone's trying to quit alcohol.
No, actually, that occurred to me too.
It's like he would have redeemed himself. He was getting there, and Brienne was helping him. But once he realized that Cersei is possibly going to die because they're all heading down there, he couldn't resist. It's like that falling off the wagon. The temptation was too strong, and it just broke him out of his redemption arc. And I feel that was actually a good way.
That part I'm okay with.
It was tragic, but it made sense.
I'm curious to see what happens with Tyrion once Dany realizes that he let Jaime go, and actually what Jaime did really had no consequence at all. He wasn't able to get into.
He's not having any of this betrayal shit, though. That's the thing.
Yeah. So again, if they kill Tyrion, I lose my HBO. So
I hate to say it, but there's a chance.
No, of course there's a chance. Of course there's a chance.
They filmed 2 innings, and I'm not going to say what, but I'm just saying anything could happen. So what would well, we're not going to get into ratings right now, but I gave
we can do ratings at closer to the end. So those are some of my initial thoughts. In some ways, it proceeded exactly as I kind of thought it would. We never saw a twist. As
I didn't feel we needed one.
Conditioned to see.
We
did.
We did though. We did, but I don't think people realize this. It was
John, in his perspective.
No, you're not gonna get this. I'm probably the only person on the planet who caught this.
What's that?
It was in the teaser, because in the teaser, remember when they were at near the very end of the teaser of the it wasn't the teaser. It was a recap of the episode where they focus on Dany and her reaction to Melisandre getting beheaded.
Yeah.
And they have all these voiceovers going on back and forth in her head. It's of all these different people saying these different things about Targaryens. And basically what it comes down to is that the whole idea of the gods flip a coin when it comes to the Targaryens.
Mm-hmm.
That was not in the last episode. That was a setup for this episode right
Oh, I
here.
skipped the recap. I'm going to go back and watch that.
That's
Yeah,
why
no, I
you
remember
never
that.
skip.
Well, and then
yeah,
they also repeat that though. Varys
they
repeats
do.
that
Right,
line
Right.
in the episode.
So
But
that
the
kind
thing
of
is,
told
is
me
it
exactly
really,
where.
really a twist? I mean,
Well, I guess
everyone's been
I
going
guess
down the road of the Mad Queen already
yeah.
for so long.
I
I
guess
didn't like that.
I had faith that if she was given an opportunity to take the mercy route, that she would, and that kind of just flipped it right there and said, nope. I guess I think I know how this is going. So
But I
Yeah.
think that for me, that wasn't a twist. I mean, they've been setting up the whole Danny's going to go mad kind of thing, or just lose it kind of thing. I don't think she went insane in this.
No.
But I
Oh,
do
no.
They
Yeah.
did a good job of building up her reasons for getting to this point, except for, well, no, I'm actually happy. I mean, a lot of people are flipping out that they're just trying to subvert the expectations the way Ryan Johnson just to do it. They're not. They've been building this up. Danny has wanted one thing her entire life, and she's got all the people she befriended and that she trusted. A lot of them died. And she did all this stuff for the North, and the North are turning on her as far as she sees. Even John, he won't sleep. This is what I'm getting sick of when it comes to John and all the Starks. Their over honesty is what killed Robb Stark. If Robb Stark hadn't killed the Karstark guy after he kept him prisoner, like they said, he would have had that army, so he didn't have to go to Walder Frey. But his honor and his morals, just like with Jon Snow, is going to fuck the whole thing up. Because if John had just gotten over the aunt thing and not been like lawful good as D&D.
That's not necessarily easy to do.
No, I know that, but Danny was
just not like,
Danny
I guess I'll just get over the
Danny was this close from getting over things, but the minute he rejected her sexually and romantically, she was just like, okay, then she's like, that's the final straw.
But it's not as if it's really a choice, George.
I understand that from her point of view. I'm saying from her point of view.
Well, yeah, I mean, from her point of view,
That's the ultimate. And it's funny too. I was reading something today that there was. And I know the books aren't as relevant, but Danny had in the House of the Undying, in the book version, Danny was told a prophecy by one of the warlocks where she said you'll have you'll be betrayed by this, and the last betrayal will be betrayed by love. Obviously, so from her point of view, like everybody she cared about. That's why she thought John did betray her. It turned out to be Varys. But Raul, we haven't heard.
Well, but she was right though when she said John betrayed me. She was right. She laid out the chain of events that led.
But no one has said that she's a dumb girl.
No, she's not.
No one ever said that.
She has the equal political mind of Tyrion. I want to point that out because a lot of people,
emotions that get the best of her.
Well, it's not just emotions. I think it's in the blood. Remember, they were saying fire.
Well, they are ancestral. That's probably.
Yeah, it's the ancestral thing. Like, for instance, I'm a fairly calm guy, but I can lose it much like many Cubans can. And but that's the truth. It's in me. What
it has been implied that the incest thing with the recessive genes is part of the madness of.
Yes, it's absolutely.
They don't all get it, but some of them do.
I had just mentioned this on somewhere else. The book. Remember that the book is based on two things. It's based on the writings of. Martin's book. It's based on two things.
Several things, actually.
The writings of Bernard Cornwell and the history of the War of the Roses.
And the Tudors. He talked about that. Sansa's based off the Queen and the Tudors there.
Yes. The Tudor battle.
Yeah.
Tudor, houses of Tudor and all that. So, but all of that was incestuous. It was my aunt versus my uncle, and while she was sleeping with my cousin, all of that was so. To not have a character that creates dynamic is just it's weak. It's weak, and he wouldn't pull punches, and neither does the show in that manner. In terms of conflictive relationships, look at my ring again.
Well, on the if you watch the inside the episode afterward, they pointed out that Daenerys, everyone that's ever gotten close to her, either betrayed her or died.
Right.
So
Yours and the rest of them, yeah.
Yeah. So she, once again, she's of course got the betrayal from Varys, and she feels this betrayal from Jon, and Jon, of course, represents the North. And so she's going to do what she's got to do to ensure that she's the queen and that there's no question about it.
Let's take a minute to talk about John and Grey Worm, because I mean it's I mean John was starting to realize in the middle, like, they surrendered, the Lannisters surrendered, and that's when, see, up until that point, everything Dany did, I was like, yes, I was loving the devastation. But once it reached that point where they could have just let them surrender and won anyways, it wasn't enough. And then Grey Worm didn't help, and we understand that he was motivated by the death of Missandei, but he didn't give a fuck about John's position anymore. It was all like Dany. He was all about the emotions at that point, which is weird because he's supposed to be very disciplined with an unsullied training.
Yeah, I felt the same way.
That was a little, but then Dany, before that, just said, fuck it, let's kill the civilians too. And just because the bells went off, and she suddenly gets triggered and just goes crazy and starts burning everything. And that's when
she's gone crazy. I think it's a mistake to call this insanity.
No, this was calculated. This was clearly calculated. She had intended on doing this all along.
Yeah, she lied to Tyrion, basically.
I never thought about that.
Yeah, no, she says it exactly to John when she says, fear then.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yes.
She felt isolated.
She said
there's no love for her.
There's no love. The John thing did affect that decision.
She said she will give. She will offer mercy. She is there to deliver mercy for the generations to follow the people afterwards. Right.
You know, I never thought that's true. She did say that to John. When John rejected her advances, it kind of compounded her.
That's where she made her decision.
Yep.
You know, so I don't think the bells triggered her.
John's little wolf could have saved the entire kingdom.
The bells were her personal signal to do what she said.
Well, I mean, they were a signal for her to decide, you know, basically shit or get off the pot. But they weren't a trigger in the sense that we talk about psychological triggers, which, you know, once you pull it, you inexorably behave in a certain way. She had already made her decision.
Right. And John,
that was the moment in which she decided to enact her decision.
And John's horror at being the honorable guy, like all these soldiers dropped their weapons and then they decide to attack while they're unarmed. John was just like, what the fuck? You know, that was hard for him to deal with.
John was really kind of a non-entity in this.
Yep.
He was surrounded by people that were like, Grey Worm was ready to kill him.
I think that was kind of the point, was to make John a non-entity in this. I think that was really...
well, it's also the point...
But what do you think that sets him up for? I'm sorry, Raul, go ahead.
No, I just like to point out that what George, and I'm pointing down in our little chat box, my George is. So George is, it wasn't a euphemism. You're really down there. So yeah, you're pointing at Carlos.
He's over here for me.
Gotcha. But anyway, point being that where he found it joyful to see the overwhelming power of the protagonist, I found it almost empowering to show people war is really hell. It's not pretty knights killing each other, you know, and nobody gets hurt. The innocents are the first to get hurt. As a person that comes from a war-torn country, I know that feeling, and there's just no explaining it to somebody that hasn't been around. So this episode, I have a feeling all the half the complaints I've already seen is why did Daenerys and the soldiers have to turn on the innocents? Because it's war, and that's what happens. That's why
just because it's war. It wasn't just because it's war. There's a lot more that built up to this that people aren't.
Yeah. But George, there's always a battle like this. There's always a battle like this in every war. In World War II, it was called the Rape of Nanking. And it was, can you imagine a conflict so bloody and so merciless that it was called the rape, not the battle?
War crimes like this happen in every war.
Exactly my point.
But in every war, the war crimes are incidental to, they're not
they're not policy
of the attack.
Unless it's the Nazis, right.
This is right. I mean, this is what she decided to do. The person.
This was a strategy.
Kings and Queens back in the era that this is like sort of based off of did that without even worrying about it.
But here's the thing: they have established in Game of Thrones that there is an honor when it comes to civilians and non-combatants. They have kind of established that. So this was
Not
completely
everybody follows.
100
Not everybody plays by those rules.
I
But this is
understand that.
Danny we're talking about. This is the breaker of
Right.
chains. This is
Yeah.
the person who talks about mercy being a strength. And so
Right.
it's
That's why Varys
a
was right.
very consequential decision that she makes, because all the more so because she didn't have to make it. She had won.
Danny went
She
full Anakin
won.
Skywalker in this.
Was that? Yeah,
Danny
she
went
did.
full Anakin
This
Skywalker.
was her
Yeah.
sand people. Yes.
Yeah,
And
this is her
yeah.
saying.
Yeah, literally.
Yep.
Except none of these people killed her mother, you know?
Yeah, that's exactly it. Because one of the things that they mentioned again in the inside of the episode thing was that it was personal for her, and I don't understand why it was personal for her. Okay, so what's her face? Seriously, she betrayed her. Like no one saw that coming. I mean, of course she betrayed her. That's like, I mean, so you burn the whole city down because seriously.
Well, and that's the thing. It's like, why did she decide to go start burning the city and only towards the end start attacking the Red Keep?
Yeah,
She knows Cersei was in the Red Keep.
She had that ends the war.
I
That's
can
like
answer
Hitler,
that.
That was like Hitler's bunker right there.
Yeah,
you
it
hit
was.
that and everything's over.
Well,
you're done.
I believe it's because it goes back to what she said to John a little earlier than her saying it is fear. Then she's saying how it actually was foreshadowed the last episode when she was in that banquet. She's seeing everybody brag about John and ignore all the things she did to help them and sacrificed to help them when she could have gone right to King's Landing and won this by now. But because she stayed to help the North, they didn't appreciate her, and that her view is she comes over here and she realizes that the North or the West is never going to accept her and embrace her the way they do John, and she's becoming paranoid, like, oh, I'm going to get what I want, but the people are never going to accept me, so fuck the people. It's sort of like Cersei. And then if you notice, they go back and forth between her face and Cersei at a certain point before she does that attack.
Yeah, she becomes Cersei.
They're more alike than they aren't. They've both been through shit, and they're both a product of what's happened to them, but they're both in a leadership position. And I think the reason they juxtapose the two of them back and forth is because she, like Cersei, says, fuck, at one point they cared, and then at a certain point they're like, no, you know what? They're all just lambs, and I'm a lion or I'm a dragon or whatever.
I think it's a stretch to draw a parallel.
She said the people will never accept her. So she's just like,
no, she never said they wouldn't accept her. What she said was they'll never love her.
They'll never love her.
Very big difference.
All right, you're right. Yep.
So, where Cersei, I mean, Danny, if you look at her past, her actions, everything was motivated by these high moral principles. And Cersei, there was never the equivalent of that with Cersei, ever. So you can't ascribe the same kinds of motivations to one as the other. Did some of their behaviors ended up being parallel, and I agree with you that they were doing that on purpose. Cutting between the close up on Cersei and the close up on Daenerys. So yeah, some of that is true, but I think it's a stretch to go beyond that and claim that somehow they were equivalent, because they're not.
I don't think they are, but I think at the end, I think the message is that the power has corrupted Dany to the point where she's becoming exactly everything she hated about Cersei, is what I think it comes down to. And this is what's so interesting about this, is that her entire story arc has been about freeing people, giving people choice and free will over their own lives, and being benevolent. I mean, the plan initially was that they were going to march into King's Landing, and they would be greeted with open arms. And she actually kind of had an opportunity for that. She did. When the bells rang, that was her opportunity. They could have walked right in there. And she said, fuck this. I'm just going to burn half the city. And you notice, too, this is something I noticed. When I say burn half the city, she literally did burn half the city. I mean, if you watch the overhead view, there's a demarcation point where she only burned half the city. It's like they're like
She also set off the wildfire too.
Yes, we saw a wildfire go off.
And so the point wasn't to burn the whole thing down. It was to send a very clear and violent message, is what it comes down to, about who's in charge.
Yeah, I did notice that the Red Keep was so high up off the ground to look down like that. I mean, I know I should have remembered that. For some reason I didn't, but Cersei, I love how Cersei. Let's talk about Cersei's defiance. Every time Qyburn told her, or whatever his name is, I'm gonna say Qyburn if I'm saying it wrong. He told her, Qyburn,
Qui-Gon.
yeah,
Qui-Gon Jinn. Qui-Gon Jinn.
yeah. Whenever she says stuff like, whenever he's like, well, you know, one of those bolts, it only takes one. She's taken out all the Scorpions. Oh, well, the Ironborn fleet, well, no, she's burnt all the ships. And then she couldn't accept it even then. She kept going down the list. Okay, well, the Golden Company, and she, okay, well, the Kingsguard, everybody will fight to the end. And he's like, okay, whatever. Because she was like defiant to the end. She was like checking off the list. Nope, not going to lose. Still got these guys, still got this. And then when he kept checking off, no, they're pretty much.
The moment was when they had breached the Red Keep. That was the moment.
That was when she started crying.
When it's time to go.
Yep.
That was the moment. But I want to point something out too. Carlos mentioned at the beginning that he was disappointed because all of a sudden they're able to wipe out the entire fleet, and the Scorpions have no effect and things like that. And what I think that comes down to for me is that was in the last episode, that was their Pearl Harbor right there. They had no idea that was coming at all, and they were caught with their pants down completely. And this time, she was prepared. They had planning, and that really goes back to in the last episode again a flaw of Dany's and her overconfidence. And not really being that well versed tactically, as it were.
Oh yeah.
An attack like that.
No, we talked about that last week. That
This time
they should have known. They
time.
should have known.
Yeah, they should have. And now that they're on the offensive, they have their strategy planned out much better. And so she was able to go in and literally rain hellfire down on everyone. And by the way, boy, oh boy, you did not realize. I never realized. We never really saw a dragon in action like we did this week. I mean,
still had two of them.
Right, exactly. I mean, I had no idea of the destructive power of dragons.
I think that
when you're seeing like that opening in the wall that he blew out from the inside, and when they start going through it, and you see literally charred and burnt bricks.
Mm-hmm.
Holy shit! I mean,
that
was amazing.
Tywin told Arya. I mean, Arya. Remember when they were having that conversation when she was serving, and they had that big hole in the wall, and he was like talking to her. And you know how this happened? She was dragons. They talked about like what dragons in the past have done. I mean, when they're big.
You don't really appreciate it until now.
Right.
There's no controlling the dragons. Once there's no equivalent. There's no counter nuke for the dragons in the fantasy world.
Right.
And that's in this particular thing, I think that when they do the prequel series, you're going to see the Valerians have an answer to the dragons because they're an advanced society. They're an advanced society.
Yeah.
However, a medieval society, if they were to encounter something like a dragon, this is exactly what would happen. If the dragon was tameable by one faction or another.
Well, we've seen how devastating the dragon fire itself is, as far as the how hot it is, by what it did to Jaime's forces in. Because you can't really go by what it did to the White Walkers, because flame kills them anyways by default. But what it did to Jaime's forces in that one battle, it was like a nuke. Like, you hit everything. There's no. It's
very easy to tell.
It was actually funny because one of the clouds, if you looked out from the left from the Red Keep, one of the black clouds was building up, looked like a mushroom cloud. It was kind of creepy. That was whoa.
Well, the thing about the power of their breath. Remember that one of them, undead, maybe he was undead.
He brought down the wall.
Blew out the greatest wall in existence.
Yep.
He does.
Yep.
It is based.
And that was a wall that was bound together, not just physically, but
metaphysically.
Magic kept that.
Yeah, and also, and let's talk about this. I don't know about you guys, but they're all happy to get the Golden Company, and I thought it was ironic that not a single Golden Company member got a single kill. The whole 10,000 Golden Company people were just completely obliterated.
To be honest, I thought the Golden Company was going to turn on them in the middle of battle.
I did too. Because they always go with the winning side.
They never go with the losing side.
They didn't have a chance. There
Yeah,
wasn't,
they didn't have a
first of all,
chance. They were
there were hardly any of them left. Number one, number two,
And-
the battle was done.
I like
Well,
that.
that
I like
was
that she
so
did that from
fast.
behind. That showed some thinking on her part to learn from the last time. She came in from behind and
Yep.
Well,
that
the,
was
the
great.
thing is with the Golden Company too is that Cersei didn't trust them, so she put them on the front lines and on the front streets, so that they would have to absorb the
fodder
of the Dothraki, of the angry Unsullied, of the Northmen.
I was
of
happy
the
to see
Northmen.
so many Dothraki survived
Yeah, me too. I was thinking the same
because
thing.
we didn't know that
I
before.
thought
I
they were
was
all
not.
gone.
I was not happy to
No,
see
there
them
was
murder
lots of them.
innocent
She
women
said
and
about
children.
half were gone.
Yeah.
Half were gone.
How
From
cool
the-
was it that John was able to get a hero moment though and stop that rape? That was
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that was great. One of his own men, though.
right, but
exactly.
but he didn't care. He's just like, no, you're not doing that. And the
Yeah,
guy,
no, that was great. But the guy, even when he turned and saw
Yeah,
him,
George.
like
Let
he
me ask you, George.
essentially turned on his king, which
George,
I don't know.
yeah, I know, and it's
oh,
just,
he did. It was one of his guys. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah,
Right,
it
it
was
was on
one
his
of his
side.
own. It was a Northman.
What were you
yeah,
gonna
it
say?
wasn't a Lannister guy raping.
Right,
one of
right.
the
It was
locals, no.
one of his. Yeah. What were you gonna ask?
So, George, let me ask you: Did you do time in? Did you have combat time? Did you do combat time?
I yes and no. Not overseas. It was a situation that happened locally, but it was a
Oh
little bit.
no, not the farmer and the game of Magic. Oh, okay, good.
We had a situation where we were almost at war with North Korea, and they had sent some spies into we were on guard in the Apaches, and someone tried to infiltrate.
Whoa!
We had to shoot at them. It was in 1994.
Well, that's another story. Holy shit!
We got shot at, and I had to shoot someone, and I got him in the leg or whatever. But whatever, it was minor.
Well, the thing about it was the whole when everything went chaotic, and they went after the swords were dropped, and there was that détente between the armies of the Targaryen army and the Lannisters, and they're all armed, they're not armed, and all of a sudden, all hell breaks loose.
Yeah.
And Carlos pointed out that nobody listened to John. Well, my thing about that was fog of war. It was just the chaos of battle in that.
Yeah.
That
It wasn't just that.
It was just berserk.
They had already
at that
set
point.
that up with Grey Worm not trusting John back the episode before when John said, we're going to do this, and he moved the thing on the map. And then Grey Worm went up and moved the thing like he's not respecting what John's saying. Like, I think Grey Worm just never trusted John. I don't know.
I think Grey Worm is not the same Grey Worm we saw the first time that he was revealed in the show. I think
Missandei obviously had lived.
She changed him. Daenerys changed him.
Right.
I mean, it's one thing to be a disciplined soldier your entire life, but that was upended the moment he was given his freedom. And
Not only that, but then
everything has changed for him since that point.
And he he kept talking about the beach and what they were going to do after, and he had his hopes up. And when that got shattered, I think it broke him from being able to.
You also have to consider that his first love beyond Missandei was Daenerys for setting him free. So, so John sleeping with Daenerys or being in love with Daenerys or whatever, that interferes with that connection between Grey Worm and Daenerys.
I think the biggest thing that what happened was that Grey Worm looked at John as someone that was going to stop him.
Rival.
In the middle of what he was doing, like when he was through the spear at the Lannister that surrendered, started the whole.
It was a Golden Company. It's important to know.
No, that wasn't a Golden Company. That was the Lannisters. That was the regular
Lannisters.
That was the regular troops. The Golden Company was already dead at that point, Raul. All of them.
No, there was more inside the thing.
No, there wasn't.
Those are Lannister regulars.
They were all
okay. Never mind.
Those were all the King's Guard or whatever, the soldiers, the troops.
Yeah. So I think the biggest problem with Grey Worm and his relationship with John, I think from the word go, that Grey Worm realized that John's true loyalties are to the North and not to her, no matter how much he says it. And I think that's his biggest issue with John.
I'm trying to figure out where he saw that coming from, though, because he wasn't privy to the conversations they had.
He said, but since the first time that they met in season 7, when he refused to bend the knee, that's what it comes down to.
No, that's true.
Yes.
Because he made it very clear where his loyalties lie, and that I think that's where his trepidation, Gridwin's trepidation, came from entirely with John, and there was nothing John's going to do to change his mind on that.
I think it's where they're going with this is, well, I don't know exactly, but I mean, John. Okay, my prediction was wrong. Arya didn't kill Cersei with Jaime's face, but I now think that she might. The green eyes thing still has to happen.
Yep.
It showed that Dany had green eyes. Apparently, they changed that, and it was revealed in people showed that last episode that when she was close up, she had green eyes. So I'm really, me and Raul really feel like Arya kills Dany with Jon's face because it would otherwise the green eyes thing means nothing.
Except Jon would have to be dead.
Who? No, actually, Raul. It turns out, I mean. Carlos, I'm sorry.
There we go.
I mean, I found out I was wrong about that because I was rewatching the episode where Arya says goodbye.
You know what we should do? Here, hold on. What we should do is we should have an alert for that. Every time you do
We're
that,
gonna get something. Just like
we play mariachi.
Where's your little button? No,
that's what we do.
God, that's
we'll just play
on the nose, isn't
Shawn,
it?
you could always call it his panic.
Yeah.
Before I forget, the reason Carlos, I thought that was true, but then I rewatched the episode where she says goodbye to Joachim or whatever his name is, Joaquin. The guy,
Joaquin.
Jockin.
Yeah, the one that taught her the face strip. Anyways,
That was a joke, by the way.
All right.
Joaquin.
Oh,
Joaquin
right.
Phoenix, right?
it's like we're having a repeat of the same joke about when I said it last time. Anyways, but he in that episode, I was rewatching it the other day. At the one point where she's pulling all the faces off of a dead one of their group, one of the last faces is hers, and she's still alive. So it doesn't have to. The person doesn't have to be dead. Apparently, I was wrong about that because the person had her face and she was still alive. So
look, hey, not for nothing, George. Here's the thing: you might be dead wrong about this, and
it could be.
They may have to be dead, and they may have been metaphorically that at that point she was dead. But here's the thing: we may be looking at Jon dying. I mean, we talked about this from the beginning. He may wind up dead.
It's possible. I don't think he will, but it is possible. I feel that Arya will be in because Arya now after the and let's talk about Arya and what she went through. I love the way they subverted the whole her being cocky about killing the Night King. And I'm sorry,
Wait, let's finish this thing about Jon before we move on to Arya.
So the thing about Jon is go ahead, Carlos.
Carlos, what do you got?
Well, I mean, I don't know. I'm still trying to work out the Jon thing because I'm not clear what they're setting up here. And the thing is, I mean, normally they don't do obvious things, but then everything we saw in this episode was obvious. Like it was so obvious when you think about some of the out of their kinds of theories, fan theories there were about who was going to do what and you know, I mean, I read one today about how Jon is going to become the new Night King, and he was, you know, and I mean stuff that's like way out there, and you know, and typically they have found ways to subvert what was going to be obvious, and this time they didn't. This time, exactly what we expected to happen happened. So if they continue that means Jon's going to kill Dany.
Whether it's him or like I said, Arya in his face.
I just don't see Arya doing it.
Well, the reason why I do,
why do we assume that she's going to use a face? I mean,
because it's easier to get closer to her if she's
close to her.
Gone.
That's why.
Like that she always does.
But wait a minute. But she's Jon's sister. Why wouldn't she be able to get close enough?
Well,
and she's also
Shawn,
she's
because
also
she doesn't. Hold on, she doesn't trust the Sansa, the Stark sisters right now.
I get it.
Everybody knows.
Okay, all right, but here's the thing: she's a fucking ninja. Well, how is she?
It's a lot easier if you're wearing the face of the one person that she knows.
I think it has to, Shawn. I think it has to do with technique too. Getting close to your target and taking them out with the face of a loved one is a faceless technique.
She's paranoid right now. She doesn't trust.
The thing about it, I don't think she trusts, but she doesn't trust Jon either.
Well, it's true, but she also doesn't. He's not on her list of people to kill. You know.
Right.
Not yet.
Yeah.
Well, she's only mad at Jon because he told Sansa, which led to the cascade of situations, the domino effect. But she still loves him, but she's like pissed because his revelation to Sansa led to.
I think she's over that love, George.
I think she views him as a threat.
Yeah.
And this was said in the.
Well, and she said that before.
Wait,
no matter what your feelings are, you're a threat.
Do you remember what Varys said in the last episode? Remember what Varys said in the last episode? how many people know? And there's like
Yeah.
a half dozen. And he goes, okay, so in a half dozen, that means that soon everyone will know.
It's no longer.
And that's
yeah.
once it's gets beyond two people, it's not a secret anymore.
By the way, we have
and they proved that. And so I'm expecting that he may not be on the list right now, but by next episode, I think that's going to change because she's going to see him as a threat, as the threat.
But
he's a true heir to the throne.
Not only that,
Even by her standards.
When Varys was arrested, by the way, jumping off what you just reminded me of, when Varys was arrested, he was in the middle of writing copies of the information, I believe, about the true lineage of the king. So we don't know now. They don't have printers and copy machines back then, so they have to physically copy everything over.
And there was already rolled up parchment, by the way.
How many ravens do we think he already had sent out?
He burned them. Didn't you see him?
No, not all of them.
Before that.
He sent some before.
Oh, he did? Okay.
Because they were all
the little girl
up in the little container thing that they put on the legs.
I think he got some out before they got
Yeah,
them.
I think
I agree.
The first
Yeah.
person.
Good call. Yeah, John's fucked.
You know who would be the Dornish princess south and the north?
I did hear a rumor that they're previously unknown, but they mentioned him. New Dorne prince will get involved in the final episode.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Well, I mean, because they have to bind these kingdoms together.
Right.
You know.
Well,
I mean,
wait a minute. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry, Charles. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Well, I mean, I'm just that's basically what I was going to say. I mean, at some point we need to discuss. Okay, what's likely to happen now, given the political situation of the Seven Kingdoms, because the Iron Throne is gone.
She's
There
fucked
is no-
because
We talked about that.
gets out what
For
she
her to
did.
sit on.
When word gets out what she did here, I mean, even if no one betrays her on the inside, she got one dragon and an army, but all the other rulers, now that Varys...
You think they're going to turn on her? I don't think they're going to turn on her. Not unless she goes really, really off the.
She's already lost it, and I think that what we're going to find is that she's going to start setting rules and examples that are going to be intolerable to everyone.
Tyrant.
I think
Sure,
she's becoming,
and that's so obvious. You know, I mean, that's
have
my
the Dothraki
problem with this.
and everybody running roughshod in the whole.
We got a wild card in this too.
What's that?
Brun.
You know,
Ron?
I'm really, that's something nobody has been able to
Why?
pinpoint what he's up to. Yeah.
Because I don't know where he appears in the last episode, and to give him to basically say, that he'll switch sides based on what they'll give him, and now it's time to collect.
He's not going to be able to get it. Tyrion's a traitor.
And Tyrion has no friends left.
Tyrion,
So I think
Yeah, a lot of
wild
this.
card in this.
You're right. A lot of this, it isn't about Bronn. The wild card is Tyrion. I mean,
Right.
what Tyrion's status is as of the end
he's
of
not.
this
He's
battle.
whether or not he gets executed or not, he's going to get arrested for treason. And get a trial. Whether or not they're going to circle back to the trial from a few seasons ago, and whether or not he gets executed or not is the question, because she warned him, "You fail me one more time, you'll fail me no longer."
This is the last time you'll film me.
Once
Correct.
she finds out that he
That's
freed Jaime,
foreshadowing, yeah.
well,
for
it's
sure.
easy to find out. How did Jaime get free? Well, they're going to tell her.
Except
and-
Jaime was of no consequence in this battle.
She doesn't care. She sees it as he's going to betray. He betrayed her.
Right.
Yes.
That's all
Well,
she-
yeah, I'm not
that's all
disputing
she
that.
sees.
I mean, but
Blinded
my
her.
point is that Tyrion made this big sacrifice,
For nothing.
for nothing.
But that's
I mean,
the
and
thing,
the whole idea that when Jaime entered King's Landing, and the first thing he does is take off his glove to reveal his golden hand. It's like, why would you do that?
And that's what got him caught. And he's talking to Tyrion about that in the tent, because he saw it wasn't the brightest. By the way, that scene with him and Jaime made me tear up. That was oh my god, the acting.
Every time those two have hugged 2 times. They've hugged 2 times in the series, and I teared up every time they've done it.
This
Fuck
was.
you both for doing that to me.
I think Tyrion knew this is the last time he was going to see his brother one more.
Obviously, but here's the other thing about this. This was such a misguided attempt to begin with, because what do they think? So, say everything goes to plan, and Jaime's able to get Cersei out of King's Landing, and they go off and they're gonna live happily ever after. Fuck no, they're gonna go after them, nonstop until they find them and kill them. Is what's going to happen. I don't. Why did Tyrion think that this was going to lead to some kind of happy ending?
Because Tyrion said something a long time ago that I think is coming back to haunt him. He said, "Never underestimate my family." He's a Lannister in his heart. He's hoping they can all gel together, but it's just not in the cards.
But he's a pragmatist too, and he's got to understand the reality.
He's a pragmatist he really only cares about his brother and Cersei's unborn child. He doesn't give a shit about Cersei, but her unborn child is the continuation, and he cares about the.
Okay, I can go with that because he let his emotions make that decision and get in the way of that. Which has been happening, honestly, pretty frequently.
But
I mean, I don't think he did that to save Cersei's child. Cersei's child was a partnership for him to try to get her to surrender.
Well, not just that, but also to make up
really trying to do. What he was really trying to do was to save
the civilians.
That's his motivation, not the kid.
I would also like to point out that the futility of the actions of our main players that look so strong in the other seasons is the point of the episode. It is futile.
And that's why people are flipping out. They don't get it. They don't understand.
Futility is important because it means that you cannot fight the tide. Once you make the decision, you are fucked. And that is the entire premise of the show.
You know what King's Landing needs? It needs democracy. That's what they need. It would have solved this whole problem.
They'll laugh at that concept.
A couple of ballot boxes.
It'll probably get brought up in the last episode as far as an idea, but I think people will laugh about it. But the thing is that I think that I think at the end of the day, the best king would be Bran, and I'll tell you why. Bran has the ability to see everything that's going to happen. Bran is emotionless. He can make decisions. If someone is on trial,
nobody agrees with you.
If Bran is on trial, that one group,
because all the things you're saying are great qualifications for him to be a king. He has no desire whatsoever, and
he has no desires.
And not only that, in this universe, your qualifications for being a king are not what gets you into the seat.
Yeah, that's
right. So it's a pointless thought. I mean, I like the idea. At least in this universe, playing by this universe rule, Jon Snow rightfully would deserve to be the king. Rightfully so. I mean, if through battle, through conquest, through proving his worth,
and the support of the people.
And the support of the people, right?
You know why I don't think Jon will be the king is because we talked about this last week that the producers hinted that the Night King threat may not be over. I think Jon's ultimately going to end up going north again, but everybody keeps saying, "Oh, it's Queen Sansa. This is going to be Queen Sansa. She's been the one that's always been made for the." No, she doesn't want anything but the North. She has no desire to rule the Seven Kingdoms.
She didn't want to rule the North though either. Here's the thing about Sansa. Sansa is kind of like, okay, you remember that? I assume we've all seen Star Trek Deep Space Nine. Mm-hmm. Okay, do you remember the final fight between Gowron and Worf? And Worf kills Gowron, and they try to put the cloak on him. Yeah. And he says, "No, this goes to Martok. Martok is your leader." Mm-hmm. And Martok says, "I've never sought power." And Worf says, Great leaders don't seek power; they have it thrust upon them.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the way Sansa has been. Jon has been like that to an extent as well. But Sansa has been. I'm not saying
she's more competent.
There is a possibility.
Yeah, I'm not saying that Sansa's going to be queen. What I'm saying is that it's not out of the possibility, just based upon the fact that when put in the position, she takes control, and she's smart, and she can lead.
You also have to factor some certain things in. King's Landing is mostly devastated. There's probably very few survivors. They're going to probably rebuild it, but the thing is that the opinions of the West are now reduced as far as the people accepting or not accepting, because the capital is, and they have to rebuild it. So they can put anyone in.
You're assuming it's going to stay in King's Landing. I don't.
I think they'll rebuild.
There's no reason why politically it can't move to the north.
I think they'll rebuild
it. Especially with a devastated fortress, a devastated city.
Rebuild it though, it's a
by whom?
It's the strategic thing. That's why they always use.
Well, here's the thing. I would look at King's Landing as having to remain the center for a couple of reasons. Commerce, the fact that they have water, they have ports.
It's
and
like
and the fact that they have
Damascus.
they have a climate that's suitable to agriculture, and clearly the north is not particularly suitable to agriculture.
King's Landing is very similar historically to Damascus in Syria because over the centuries,
Similarly,
in the sense of how important it is as a strategic area in that part of the world, because you got the seaport, the commerce, the trade, like he said, and
sure.
And people
but that's like the difference between New York.
conquer.
That's the difference between New York and Washington D.C.
There's not a lot of greater options. Though.
New York
Explain that.
Well, New York is the center of commerce. It's the center of culture. It's the center of finance. It's the center of shipping. The capital has none of those things. Washington, D.C. has none of those things. You don't have to have the capital in that kind of place. In fact, in some ways, it's better if you don't.
Yeah, but here's the thing. I see your point on that, but Washington, D.C. became the capital during the Industrial Revolution, and they don't
No,
have
it didn't. No, it didn't.
No.
There was no Industrial Revolution yet.
No.
when D.C. became the capital?
Yeah.
It moved because it
was in Philadelphia first.
it was
in
in
New York
as well.
first, then
It was New York
Philadelphia.
first.
But they had other ways to get. All right, in this world, they don't have airplanes and trains. They have ships.
Okay.
And horses.
Let me go back here. When did D.C. become the capital of the U.S.?
Like around the 1800. I mean, it was already capital by the War of 18.
But Industrial Revolution started at the end of the 1700s.
Not to the kind of degree you're talking about. I mean,
Okay.
it's not. They still fought with muskets and soldiers. There wasn't a technological.
1790 is when Washington D.C. became the
Yeah,
capital.
thank you. Okay, so it was close to 1800. So the reason it was chosen was because it was not any of those things. It was chosen because they wanted the capital to be just the capital.
Makes sense. Right. That's true.
I just don't see Game of Thrones pushing that ideology because they're going with medievalish philosophies.
Yeah, I mean
But
that's
it's
my
the
only
same.
point here. I think the idea, the medieval concept of it is different than a more
George R. R.
shall we
Martin
say modern.
clearly has
is really what
certain
I'm getting at.
things that are built into the DNA of this show. And one of them is like Raul mentioned many times, the War of the Roses, the Tudors, certain other influences. But he's not the modern concept of why they made DC the capital has a lot to do with things that happen, not for in a democratic society too. This is not even they're not even entertaining democracy. They need,
But it wasn't about democracy. It was about politics.
Oh, I know,
It was about throwing a bone to the southern states. In a place that because
but they're not in a civil war in Westeros. Though.
I'm not talking about the Civil War. I'm
No,
talking
that's
about
not
when.
Oh, that's true. Okay, I see what you're saying.
This is
But
60 years, 70 years before the Civil War. They did it because they needed essentially neutral territory, and that's a valid political concern. It has nothing to do with democracy. It has to do with
They also one
economy.
thing that might figure into your thoughts. What King's Landing is not organic. I mean, King's Landing is organic. DC is not. DC was made to be the center of politics by design by the Masons and by the most powerful people in the government at the time. It was made by design. King's Landing is organic.
right.
And, yeah, that's true. And King's Landing, according
In
to
the same way, New York and Philadelphia were organic.
Yes, exactly.
yeah, that's true. King's Landing was let's see here. It was used as the base of it's in the east coast of this world. It's on yeah.
My point being is that there's nothing that will hold the population to actually come back to the city and work there and rebuild it.
Exactly.
Nothing.
That was my question earlier, which is like you were assuming it's going to be rebuilt, and my question is why are you making that assumption?
Why?
No
No,
one
don't
who's
assume.
in power right now has interest or motivation in having to make.
What other cities have they established that could become the capital?
Well, they're not there yet, George.
Yeah,
Garden.
Well,
Well,
High Garden is
nice.
not devastated too. I will mention that.
Yep.
that's right. High Garden is,
the-
Dragonstone is the seat of would and we know
Dragonstone is the
Dragonstone
logical.
can't support a city around it.
The
No,
Dornish.
but it doesn't. You don't need a city. You
you don't
just
need a
Yeah,
city.
that's
You
true.
need a center of governing.
Yeah, that's
Hey,
true.
Speaking of dragons, we were. This has come up a bit in the speculation side over the last week about perhaps there are more dragons we don't know about.
Yeah, stone,
Yeah,
they call them
that's-
stone eggs or what they call them, or whatever.
Right.
There could be
So
tons of
and
them, and they
this,
just haven't-
this got me thinking about this because they made a point during Jaime and Cersei's attempted escape. They went right past that big ass dragon skull. Is
Yeah.
that possibly foreshadowing something for next
Yes.
week?
I
Well, the
think-
theory,
I agree.
I've read that theory too in the past week. The theory being that, you know, no, it was Drogon. Drogon was gone for almost a
Gone
year.
for a while. He could have laid some eggs. You're right.
And we know that part of the time he was gone was in Valyria, in ancient Valyria. So it's quite possible that eggs happen. Now, my issue with that is to all of a sudden introduce that at the very end.
I don't know.
feels
Maybe I
unearned.
should one shot. Of
Well,
the-
I don't know so much as unearned because it might be a deciding factor if.
Well,
for-
it would
for,
be
for,
if they exist.
but no, for John, these might be his dragons.
I don't
what I'm
think we
getting at.
find out about the dragon.
Remember, they could also be Tyrion's.
That's true.
I actually think that the audience will see possibly a few shots of a dragon egg thing, but I don't think that the characters will be aware of it. I think it's for the far future that's what they're going to foreshadow. That things are going to repeat like a cycle. I think we're going to see signs that the White Walkers will come back and that the dragons will come back, but the characters may not ever.
But I feel like the whole point of this show, of this story, is about breaking cycles.
Yeah.
Well, as
so
far
I
as
don't-
the
Or that you can't break them. Is that the story?
that could be because Daenerys had good intentions, but that doesn't mean they were ready for it.
Yeah,
I
you're
think
back
it
to
was
we're back to Battlestar Galactica. This has all happened before; it all happen again.
Well, not necessarily just that. It's like back in the ancient Greece times, they were trying to play around with democracy. Now, it took centuries and centuries before we actually got democracy to really become a thing. But they played around with it in the ancient Greece and Athens. And then, of course, because of other more powerful governments like taking over, it never got to be seen into fruition until the 1776. But the idea has been played with in history. I think this is what's happening in Game of Thrones. It's like they want to change things and they're trying, but it's not. The world's not ready for it quite yet in their history. Is what's going to end up being the case. It's like
I don't know about that because Tyrion made an excellent point, and of course you're going to say because I'm an economist, but Tyrion made an excellent point. He said, "I am richer," and he was pointing towards the Masters. Remember that? And he says, I was born richer than any of you in this room, and we have not slaves for hundreds of years in Westeros. Change happens when economic sense aligns with purpose. That's when change happens.
Yeah,
Look,
I agree with you. I think
George R. R. Martin
at
has
that
plans.
point of
Right?
change.
George R. R. Martin has plans, and he said it.
Hold on, Carlos. Hold on.
Right.
Carlos, you were saying something. Follow up.
Well, I just feel like what we've seen happen in this episode is not just Daenerys' victory. We've seen all of the institutions of the Seven Kingdoms have literally tumbled to the ground.
Yeah.
There is no Iron Throne to ascend to. It has lost its power as a symbol. And in fact, if anything, it's not only lost its power, it's become so irrelevant. There's nobody out there who aspires to an Iron Throne that doesn't exist anymore.
Yep.
We didn't talk about. Good. Sorry.
So that means that part of the job of the victor is to come up with new institutions, and that's, I think, part of what we're going to see play out in this next
Oh, you agree with
episode. Because I don't know, they're not going forward in time from here. They're going backwards. HBO is. So
Right. They have other planned, but yeah.
So they need to have some kind of a wrap up around, because what they did do, the expectation they did subvert here was who's going to sit on the Iron Throne? Well, now there is no Iron Throne.
Oh,
So what is the new expectation? New expectation is, how is Westeros going to be ruled now? What are the new centers of power? What is the locus of power? You now have a victorious queen who knows that she is feared. Like, fear is her thing now.
Actually, the Iron Throne is still intact. I'll explain why, but keep going.
What is?
It's in the trailer, so she's walking out of it. Even though the Red Keep was devastated, remember, from what I'm gathering, it may be destroyed around, but the throne is in that room is still intact, and I'll tell you why. It harkens back to that vision she had in the episode with the Tower of the Undying.
Wait, but what did you see that?
In the promo, she's walking out of what looks like the
Next week?
Yeah,
Next week's promo was so short. I was like,
it was.
what?
Well, she's walking out in what looks like what would have been where anybody would walk out from the Iron Throne room. And in the vision she had, the Iron Throne was still intact, but everything around it was destroyed, but it was still there. So that tells me that she sort of looks at it like a Pyrrhic victory, like, I got the Iron Throne, even though everything's fucked up. So, you know what I mean? I think you're going to find the Iron Throne still intact, at least up until next episode.
I don't think it matters.
But it doesn't matter, but I think I'm just saying that there is
an Iron Throne, and I think people they're going to find out.
It's irrelevant.
If they'll act like a logical populace.
It's a Pyrrhic victory. It's not going to matter.
No longer represents something to be feared or even to be feared. It's something that is hideous and should be destroyed. And that is the what the people will say, not us, the critics.
Yeah, I mean, she doesn't go into this. I don't know what her plans are, but she goes into this now. You know, she has made her bed that she's going into this as they'll fear me, and so I'm not really sure how long she expects that to be able to last.
Yeah, because they never actually changed what we expected when John had that conversation with her in the Dragon Pit, and it was implied. Maybe she can get pregnant and then we're going to find that out. Because how do you know you can't have kids just because the way? But the thing is that as far as she knows, she's the last Targaryen. Well, in her and John, but they can't. It's not like they can carry on unless she makes an heir. But it's not going to be a Targaryen heir because she can plant someone. She can adopt a kid and say that's my heir, but it's not really a Targaryen. John's the only one that can actually make an heir with somebody else.
I don't know if they're even going to go there, honestly.
Yeah, I don't
you have
think
one
that matters.
episode left. I don't think they're going to...
It is a longer episode, though, so it's possible.
Yeah, but it's not...
They got left to
talk. Is it possible that she's already pregnant? I mean,
it is
talked
possible
about that before.
It is, and they might do a time skip. We don't know.
Yeah, that's true. They might do a time skip. That's a good point. I'm more concerned with the fact that how she sold herself politically as to what she has become and what the people of King's Landing, how they're going to view her and what that means for her ability to maintain control.
Can we take a look? Do you guys mind if we take a look at the trailer for next week?
You want to play it here in Zoom?
You got it, brother.
I'll play it here in Zoom.
That would be cool. Do it. Let's take
All
advantage of this technology we have. We have the technology.
I'm little.
Let's see. Do you guys see the?
I see the screen.
Okay, good.
You're gonna have to blow it up though.
Yeah, blow it up a little. Either the first or second thing there. Yeah, do full screen. Yeah,
Let me go back to the beginning.
Here we go.
Okay, so you see, walking through the ruins, Tyrion.
All we got.
Keep pausing if you find there's a spot you want to talk about. Arya's pissed.
No, she's bewildered.
They're still
she's pissed.
Rocky.
No, look at her face again. She's bewildered.
It doesn't look like bewildered.
She's taking it all. She's taking it all in.
All right, you see how she's walking? Like, if you look at the devastation, it reminds me of that vision she had. That's why I think the throne room is still intact, because it reminds me of that vision, and people have kept posting that, because that vision from the Undying Tower is very critical.
In that first shot, who is it you see there walking through the ruins?
That was her.
No, before Tyrion.
That was her. You saw the white hair right there.
Right. I agree. But hey,
she's with someone.
No, is she? I can't tell.
You know, awesome?
There's someone in front.
We couldn't do this shit with TeamSpeak, that's for sure. Holy shit.
Yeah, no, I don't see her with anybody, dude. I just see her walking by herself.
No, there's someone in front of her, definitely.
Really? Go back. All right. If you go back a little bit and pause.
There's someone in front of her.
Hold on. All right. A little bit further back. I love the use of Zoom.
Isn't it amazing?
It's
This is so
HBO.
great.
That's who's with her. Well, I didn't see anybody else, but
That's not pissed.
Yeah, I don't think that's pissed either.
all right.
You know, and then
Right
look
there,
at
it
that.
looks like
What is-
she's walking
Okay.
out of the ruins.
But when in the very beginning, who's she walking with? Who's it? Who's
See, I'm
the-
not
I
catching
don't
that.
know. It might be Tyrion because it looks like someone short.
Well, he is pretty short.
I think it is Tyrion.
Thank-
It
Thanks,
is
George.
It is Tyrion.
That's why I thought it was Tyrion. That was
All right. So, yeah, so he's walking
I-
ahead of her, I guess.
right.
She's taking a left. He's taking a right. You go that
You know,
way.
but I don't see where the Iron Throne thing is, though.
No, I'm just saying that the surroundings look like the vision that she had. And in the vision, the Iron Throne was still attacked by everything around
That's I guess we'll
But
see.
in the vision, the Iron Throne was intact and everything around
I think they'll stock in
Yeah, but that could also be metaphorical, George.
it could
Right.
be. It could be. You're right. Either way, it doesn't matter whether she literally has the Iron Throne. It's not going to matter. She's going to claim.
Yeah, that's kind of what I'm saying.
I mean, Aegon created the Iron Throne. She can create something like she can make a pillow and say that's the goddamn new Iron Throne. So.
I think the Iron Throne's irrelevant. I'm with Carlos on this one. I think it's
Yeah.
Oh, I agree. I'm just saying.
all these institutions, the Seven Kingdoms, have been burned to the ground. That's what it
Absolutely.
comes
Yeah.
down to.
And
I mean,
this
you're
is gonna be
seeing-
another one.
You know, the shots that we see here, again, there are only 8. You're seeing ruins. You're
Yep.
seeing a victorious Dothraki. We're seeing a victorious Dany with her armies splayed in front
Unsullied.
of her.
Yeah.
And it's something I noticed about that too. That's all that were lined up for it. You're not seeing the people at King's Landing there.
Yeah, what people? They're all dead.
cheering her.
Or,
No,
They're
they're
not
all
all
dead,
dead.
but-
Some of them got out.
But a lot of them.
got out, George. But I
Oh,
mean,
you know what? You just blew my mind. I just realized something. Remember what everybody always talked to her about being queen of the ashes?
Yeah.
It looked like snow. Those are ashes.
Oh yeah, we
Oh,
saw
yeah.
that when Arya woke up.
So
Yeah.
it makes me think back to
the
that
nuclear
original
winter.
vision. But that's what makes me
that she
think back to
woke
the
up in.
original vision, as it looked like it was all snow, because then it went off to her going to the north, going outside the wall in the vision. But now that I think about it, it wasn't snow. It was always ashes.
What?
Oh,
Well, they've repeated the Queen of the Ashes thing many times over the
but
course. of the-
visually is what I'm saying.
Yeah, but it's not surprising, is what I'm saying.
I like it. Yeah. Because
you
you
know,
be
so
thinking it's like snow, but it's ashes. I don't know. It's sort of weird.
I mean, to me, I come away from that trailer feeling like a lot of this is repercussions, you know, and the
Yeah,
fact
I
that we
agree.
see Arya so prominent in it because we don't see John prominent in it.
I really think, yeah.
Sansa
I think me and
prominent.
Raul are right about this one.
We don't see. I mean, Arya definitely has a role. That she has survived so many times in just this episode that she could have died. Like
Oh, yeah,
everyone
welcome.
around her died except
Right.
We did skip over that because we weren't ready for it at the time. But let's talk about Arya's. So Arya had a little bit of not justly so. She had a little bit of cockiness about.
Guys, I'm just taking a quick break here. I'll be right back.
Okay. So Arya had a little bit of cockiness about having taken out the Night King, and she believes she has another role to play. So she goes down there with the Hound. What I loved about what they did, not just to subvert the expectations, is she got a reality check. Yes, you did this awesome, great thing, but that doesn't mean you're going to win the next awesome, great thing. You got to, I'm going to go in there and kill the queen, she says, literally. And, I mean, I think it was an interesting reality check for her, and it's going to help offset the whole Mary Sue thing when the fans kept saying that, because she thought she could go in there and do that, and maybe she could have, but the Hound, being the protective guy he was, knew what they were about to enter into.
There's no coming back.
It was like, no, you need, and you know what? This was the closest the Hound ever came to actually saying that he loved her.
Did you see the way he held her head?
Yes, it was very gentle.
I loved the way she thanked him. It was
It was very gentle. It was actually more touching, I think, than the brothers.
I agree. Now that I've said that, I agree. Their relationship is a created family, a family born out of tragedy and things that happen to people. And he really has demonstrated as his arc is one of the best. And then when Shawn gets back, we got to talk about Cleaver Bowl because it finally did it. Did we already talk about that?
We did a little bit, but we didn't go into like the mechanics of it.
But Arya and the Hound and how she thought she was such a badass because she took out the Night. I don't think it was because she took out the Night King. I think she's always been a little overconfident. I
don't see this as about being overconfident.
Remember that line she said to John?
I think the point of this scene was less about overconfidence and more about a reality check.
Yeah.
And the Hound basically saying to her, you need to live. It's important for you to live. It's not important for me to live. Learn from my example. I'm going to go in there and I'm going to die.
Yeah, he showed her the scar and said, see what happened when you become.
Do you want to be like me? He says to her. And she realizes, no, I don't. I want my life to go on. I want to accomplish more than just this
list of killing revenge.
And so that's what I saw it as. I saw it as a check on her figuring out what she wants out of life, not just giving in to her wants out of death.
Yeah, I mean, the Hound, I just love that scene. I think it was great. And
there was some great acting in this episode.
Yes.
As troublesome as it was on other levels, you can't fault the acting.
I don't agree with you on some of the reasons you think that are faults, but that's just because of my personal experiences when it comes to how these things play out in war. Like, it's not just about subverting expectations. Sometimes what I like is that they want people to think, as if you're writing a story, the narrative structure, this is what logically should happen next because they set this up. And it isn't just about subverting expectations. How else are you going to surprise people if you don't? They intend, like, I'm going to go kill the queen, and the Hound being consistent with his arc with Arya, his protective mode. It's like, no, you got to find you're awesome, but you go through there with me. It's not going to end well, and you need to go and be better than me. And I just love that moment. And then she thanks him, like I said. And I love that moment because she finally acknowledged to him. You
said his name.
His first name.
Oh yeah, Sandor.
Said
Yep.
his name. Yep.
It was great. And and then of course he goes off to meet his fate with his brother, which we always knew was coming. And Shawn,
weirdly, I thought it was going to be a 2-for-1 deal when the brothers met.
What do you mean 2-for-1?
Oh, that they were both going to kill each other eventually.
Oh, well, that is kind of what happened.
Well, no. I know that's why that's what I expected.
How awesome was it that what's the name? Qyburn? I keep mispronouncing it. Qyburn. How awesome was it that the Frankenstein's monster kills the Dr. Frankenstein?
Very predictable.
That's his way of going bye-bye. And Cersei, like, please don't kill me. She's walking down the steps. I thought it would have.
No, she wasn't like that.
She wasn't scared. She realized, okay, it's between you guys.
Okay.
She looked pretty scared.
Exactly. She wasn't scared at all. She was like, okay, you do you.
I think she was a little scared. I would be scared.
She was at first.
But then I don't even like her.
She's smart enough to know that the Mountain at this point does not care about her, does not care about Qyburn. He only killed Qyburn because Qyburn was in his way.
Yep.
Yes.
He wanted to get his brother.
Yep.
So she just let him. And so she just walked very calmly.
That dude's brains flew out the back of his head when he killed him. It was like, oh, shit.
Oh, my God. I was telling Raul earlier.
That's one of the best deaths in this show.
Raul and I had a conversation, and it's kind of a nitpick. But do you remember when the Mountain fought the Viper, how powerful he is was demonstrated when he punched him in the jaw, and he not only broke his jaw, but the teeth all went flying out?
Mm-hmm.
Well, no matter how much he pounded on his brother, at the last moment before he gouges his eye out, he opens his mouth. The Hound opens his mouth, kind of laughing. And he's got all his teeth after he'd already bashed his face.
Guys, now I'm not going to tell you what my reaction was to that. What is your reaction to what he just told you?
Yeah. Anybody?
About.
Well, the Mountain is demonstrated. He's so strong that with one punch, he can not only kill somebody, but the Viper had all of his teeth go flying out just before he gouged his eyes out and squished his head with one hit, and he dislocated his jaw. But with his brother, he's like pounding on his head several times before they get to the final part, and he opens his mouth to laugh. And he's got all of his teeth intact and everything. I mean, it's a minor thing, but it just seemed kind of funny.
I didn't know him taking that big of a hit to the mouth like he did with.
He bashed him in his face.
Not like
Plus,
that.
he's not the Viper. He's way bigger
Yeah,
and
that's true.
stronger than the
They're
Viper.
both made of tougher material, I guess.
Yeah. So
Surprise.
So to me, I was never a Clegane Bowl fan.
Right.
It wasn't something I was particularly looking forward to. I'm not anti it. It was sort of they've been setting it up.
Well, how'd you like how they ended up? You know?
I mean, them both dying in flames. I guess it was okay. I mean, there's nothing about the way it proceeded that was surprising to me.
This wasn't about the mountain dying. This is about the hound dying. Is what this is about. This is the end of his story. Nobody gives a shit about the mountain. Okay,
right. I mean, Mountain's he's a Frankenstein. He's basically dead already, which is why you can't kill him. You can only
just a monster.
Flesh away. But where we've seen the other, the fight with the Viper is the best example. It's like at one point, what made that such a great fight was the fact that the Viper was winning.
Mm-hmm.
Got cocky.
It was when he got overconfident that it flipped around, and there was no similar kind of dramatic stakes here between the Hound and the Mountain.
No, it was just the closing of the loop of their story. That's all it was.
Yeah,
that was the whole point of that. But I love seriously how she goes like, okay, just gonna walk right on by.
Well, that's what. Yeah, that is.
That was funny as hell.
I have to tell you. Go ahead, Raul. Were you gonna say something?
I was gonna say too that the Cleghorn boys going at it. You're right that it wasn't about the Mountain, because the Mountain is already dead.
Yeah,
he's a monster.
True.
And so the only person to care about is the Hound.
Yeah, and this was about closing the loop on the story that the Hound told about what his brother did to him.
Right.
Yes.
That's all this was about. Was finally getting closure on that for the Hound.
But I'll posit this: who else could have killed the Mountain? Nobody in that story. Nobody.
No, it was.
And technically he didn't. They fell into flames, and that's what killed.
He did kill him by the sense that he threw him into that. But yeah.
But not really. It wasn't. He what?
He was the agent of his destruction.
Yeah.
Sure, but he himself did not kill him.
He tried. He tried his damnedest.
Well, I'm pretty sure if he had been decapitated by somebody, it would have killed him. But we don't know.
He stuck that thing through his freaking skull, and it didn't stop him.
Didn't stop him. So
yeah, but if he'd been decapitated, that would. But anyways, it's irrelevant.
We don't know that, and
I don't know, man.
Fire obviously killed him.
He would have put his head back on his neck, I think, and kept going.
Really, he's not taking away a lumpy piece that he doesn't use anyway.
I actually did some backstory research earlier today about
Bachelor.
I always say his name wrong. Qyburn. And why he was kicked out of the Maesters in his experiments, and he did vivisections on people because his belief was you learn about life through death, and you learn about death through life. So you have to do vivisections to learn about death because they have to be alive. It was a weird inverted philosophy, and that's what. But
so he basically did, opened up living people is what he did.
Absolutely.
Took them apart.
You learn about how death.
Fun guy.
You have to do it to a living person. If you want to learn about how our life works, I'm sorry, the other way around. Life, you got to do it to an autopsy, and then if you want to learn about how death works, you got to do it to a live person.
So he's a fun guy. Great at parties.
Yeah, he's great at parties, man.
Yeah, he's awesome.
His brains flew out the back of his head.
Yeah,
that's all I'm saying.
Did anyone notice that, by the way, part of how Jamie fucked up Euron was with his fake hand? Because he hit him with that. It's like...
Yeah, I was waiting for that. I wanted that to happen.
It would be cool if he had like a weapon.
I just feel... you guys satisfied with that?
No, I wasn't. And I'll tell you why. Because it seemed like they had to figure out a way to kill Euron off, and they contrived this rivalry between the two that did not exist.
That didn't exist. Yeah.
Right.
You know what,
I didn't understand that at all.
Here's the thing.
Actually, Jamie kind of made a point of it.
Euron,
kind of made, hey, look, I gotta go save Cersei. So let's go. And
there's been a lot of debate online about did Euron kill Jamie? No, he didn't, because he could have possibly survived those wounds. We don't know.
Maybe.
Yeah. It was just. It was.
Here's the thing. A lot of times, if those were fatal blows, okay, they would have been fatal blows due to blood loss, okay. and he would have been dead before he reached Cersei's door if those were fatal blows. So I kind of got to think that he probably would have survived that had not the castle fallen.
He would have had a 50-50 chance.
Well,
I
we
mean,
don't
look,
know, but the reality is, we know that what actually finally killed him was, the
rubble.
castle falling down on top of him.
Yeah, he kind of died like
about Cersei's
Kirk did.
Well, let's talk about this.
I'm just gonna fill this with Star Trek references. I'm telling you right now.
And
that's a way to turn back our audience, Shawn.
It's unsatisfactory deaths. One of the biggest complaints I keep seeing pop up is everybody wanted Cersei to die in a more satisfying way, and that it felt like it was dying in the arms of her brother lover. And we talked about this a little bit in the beginning. My feeling is that, look, she kept bringing up, we came into this world together, and we're gonna. And I think she even said it once that we're gonna die together. I think she actually said it to Jamie one time, and when she was getting into her craziness about getting power.
Well, okay, but let's get to what is it called, the Voloncar prophecy, where she was supposed to be killed by her little brother.
They didn't actually say that. People keep saying that, but I watched that episode again. She didn't actually say that. She said something along the lines of, I'm paraphrasing, she said something along the lines of, you're going to have this many kids, but they're all going to die, and then something about a brother, but I don't recall her saying the brother will kill you, but you're going to be, I don't know, something about being with a sibling. I don't know. He didn't actually kill her.
I mean, look, if you want to be, ultimately, if the prophecy was that
now I got to look it up.
Her little brother would kill her, technically, he kind of did. I mean, because of his support for Daenerys. I mean, you could take it that way. Sure.
You could interpret it that way, for sure.
Why not?
Let's see. The prediction said, the last prediction was Cersei asked if she'd be queen one day, and
I found it. Yeah.
Sayer said she would for a time, but eventually she'd be replaced by another, younger, more beautiful, who would cast you down and take all you hold dear.
Not only that.
Well, there you go.
Hold on, there's one more part to that. It says, Cersei asked if she and the king would have children, and Maggie said the king would have 20 children, but Cersei would only have 3. Those 3 children,
you know who they are.
Those 3 children would find great success. Gold will be their crowns, but also die prematurely. Gold their shrouds. Yes, Cersei had 3 children, Joffrey, Tommen, and Marcella, and all have died. As for the last prediction, it says, asked if she'd be queen one day, and Maggie confirmed she would for a time, but eventually she'd be replaced by another, younger, more beautiful, who would cast you down and take all you hold dear. And
yeah, I watch Disney movies too.
But no, that's all she said. She said you're going to get killed by your sibling. So I think people...
Nice, Raul.
Thank you. I was waiting for that.
Very good.
Yeah, so there's never actually...
waiting all night for that one.
All night. That's it. I'm gone.
I don't know where all the lines people misinterpret it, but there's no actual line that says your sibling is going to kill you. So I guess it works.
They're too wrapped up. They don't even get my joke.
I didn't hear it. I was too busy talking.
As you know.
We know.
What did you say? What your joke? Repeat your joke.
Because you kept saying the line over and over again. It sounded like the Sleeping Beauty line.
Oh.
Why the queen gets replaced by a younger, more beautiful queen. And so I said, yes, I watch Disney movies too. Okay. And Shawn was the only one to listen to me.
Well, I heard it in the background.
I heard it. But
yeah, I just didn't connect.
I was reading the
The younger, more beautiful queen was Carlos all this time.
I never wrote
I called you beautiful.
Thank you. Very sweet.
Now, look, you don't sound very thrilled at that.
A whole new world.
So, okay.
When
we're talking about their death, the death of the 2, it's like, I'm fine with it. It's fine. I mean, I have no problem with it. I know for the sake of dramatic purposes, people wanted something more, I guess, satisfying. But here's the thing. I think the lesson in this is that ultimately it's not their story. The true story is the Daenerys arc, which ends next week. That's what it comes down to.
Well, sort of. I mean, we've seen Cersei since the very first
I agree. Yeah.
episode.
We saw her in the back.
We saw her own rise to power, paralleling the rise to power of Daenerys. And I mean, there is a certain satisfaction from the fact that she and Jaime died together. That's fine. We assume they're dead because we haven't seen bodies, but I'm pretty sure that it doesn't make sense for them to survive.
No, they're dead.
It just doesn't.
And
So
the other, go ahead. I'm sorry.
well, I mean, so the question is, I mean, do we feel like she came to a dramatically satisfying conclusion? And, she's watching this battle and refusing to acknowledge the reality that she's losing.
Slow death, right?
Even as it's happening, even as Qyburn comes in and says the Scorpions are all gone, the wall has been breached, the Unsullied have come through the wall and they're now going through the streets, and she still holds on to this weird notion of the Red Keep has never fallen. It's like that doesn't. There's nothing inherent about the Red Keep. It was well protected enough, but now it's not.
It was a slow death throughout the whole.
I don't. Right. George, I think you're kind of hitting on this because I don't think that she truly believed the words she was saying. I think that
she was in denial. That's what denial.
Her entire art. Well, maybe not. I don't even think internally she was. I think she was. She realized what was going on consciously. Not even like she wasn't in denial, but she just expressing to them that those feelings, but she didn't mean it. I think the entire arc with her through this episode was her watching everything she had built slowly be destroyed in front of her eyes. And when those bells rang, that was it. Because that's when the tear rolled down her cheek. That was the moment she knew it was over.
I thought it was when Qyburn said, or Qyburn said to her, "We go to this isn't say we go to this other place." That's when she started crying.
No, it was when the bells rang. As soon as the bells rang, that was it.
I think George may be right about that.
No, it's when she said, "We got to go to this place. It's safer."
She turns around and realizes she does have to go. I think that is when the tear happened.
It wasn't the bells. It was Danny. It was the bells.
The bells, because remember, she never ordered the bells. Somebody else somewhere.
Right, exactly. See, that's how she knew it was over.
Yeah, but it wasn't. That wasn't what made her.
Do you remember she had mentioned ringing the bells to begin with? Not like 2 or 3 episodes ago. She had mentioned this as a strategy to ring the bells, let them come right through the front doors, and let them kill everybody in sight, and let's see how that works out.
Was that episode 1 or
1 or 2? I think.
I actually
it must have been 1 because she wasn't into. So
at one point it crossed my mind that
I'll have to.
Jaime. It's almost like they were setting it up like Jaime was heading for one of the bells in order to ring it.
Yes.
And I thought, oh God, that's the worst thing that happened, because for exactly the reason you're talking about, Shawn, which is, that invites in your enemy, and now they're going to get slaughtered by the troops that are in there.
Right.
But that's not how it ultimately turned out.
And that would have been kind of poetic too, because wasn't he responsible for the bells for
allowed Tywin and everybody coming after he killed the Mad King.
Right. He was given.
That's where they talked about that. Right. Thank you.
Yeah.
It's when he's relaying the story.
Yeah, when he's telling Brienne about that. Yep.
Right. That's why Daenerys went ape shit.
When they were naked in the tub. Obviously.
Right.
I knew it was something like that.
Oh, and by the way, here's the thing. This episode, because I don't have a problem with the way Jaime and Cersei went out, but what I have what this does is make me hate the last episode that much more.
I have to disagree with you. I think he, like you said, I compared it to an alcoholic having fallen off the wagon.
Well, I think you're both
fine.
right. I don't think you're saying things that are at odds with each other, really.
Well, I think I mean, they said I didn't like the fact that they shipped Brienne and.
I think that was always meant to be. I don't think it was a fan service to be. You said it was a fan service. I don't know.
I entirely believe it was fan service.
I think that was what George R. Martin had in mind.
I
really do.
Point to it whatsoever.
He worked with the producers on even past the books on what was he planned, and they were trying to be true. And I believe that even before the fans on the show went, oh my God, I think he really, that was
But
where,
you know what? Here's the thing. This George R. R. Martin is not a perfect writer. Is what it comes down to for me.
he's not, but I don't think he, I don't think he anticipated.
I'm gonna go that far, but here's my point. In this, if they were gonna do the Brienne Jamie thing, it should have been done a lot sooner than they did it. Okay, to have them do this
Oh, I don't think
They
so.
did.
when they did, I thought it was pointless.
That's one of the only fair complaints
No,
I'll give.
I think it made sense for it to happen when it did, because it was his last shot at redemption. You know, her begging him to stay was his last shot.
I have some people are better people when they're away from their bad, toxic. Sorry.
George,
I mean,
you know, because the thing is, in some ways, this was service to the people who are like, he was an awful person. He did awful things.
Yep.
And yes, he did do some redemptive things, but he's never truly paid for the awful things that he's done. And
Yep.
And I think that he realized that he needed to pay, you know, that as far as he had come, as much as he'd indulged these feelings of wanting to be redeemed and wanting to do the right thing, that his tragic flaw, and I think that it was set up that way. It was a tragic flaw. That's why him leaving Brienne hurt so much, because it was tragic. It was the thing he could not get away with. If they'd done that sooner, it would have petered his own storyline out way too soon.
You know,
I would like to say too that he proved everybody right that doubted him. You know, that said this is not a good man. I said it was not a good man early on in these shows, and I thought that he would come to a dismal end. However, I didn't think he was going to basically sell out the people he believed in to do it.
well, he didn't really do that though.
No, he didn't really do that.
He didn't sell anybody out by going to try to save his sister that he loves. He wasn't hurting anybody by doing that. It was in his mind like a minor, like it was like a necessary evil. And also, I want to point something out real quick.
He even said,
Real quick, HBO they offered to pay for 10 episodes to stretch out a little longer to make this a bit more smooth as far as getting the storyline its proper length for this final season. And the producers refused. They said, no, we feel 73 episodes total is what we need. Now, some people...
I think that was a mistake.
I agree. I think that they should have just
Yep, I agree.
taken them up on the 10-episode offer, and everybody would have been happier because they could have given a little more time to stretch out the
Because I think when you look back at the first episode, okay, which I was disappointed on because it was just nothing but exposition.
Mhm.
And that if you're gonna do that, then what they sacrificed by doing that, they made it so that hold on. Okay. Am I with you? Because I just got
Yeah.
You're with us.
Okay. If you're gonna do that, then you need more room to breathe, because what they did was they trapped themselves they put themselves in the box where they had to tie up storylines. They had to squeeze things in there too quickly, and that's why that's why what my problem is with the Brienne Jamie shipping there is that it seemed very rushed. Is my thing on that, and I agree that with Carlos that this would have been better served had they stretched this out another 2 or 3 episodes.
Well, I said earlier this season that I felt like the first 2 episodes were essentially the same kind of episode twice. And which is okay. I don't have a fault with them taking 2 episodes to do what they did. The problem is when you only have 6 and 1/3 of them are those kinds of episodes, that's kind of a problem. You know, with 1 episode left, there is so much that needs to be taken care of. That
Do you know how long, real quick, let me look it up while you're talking.
Yeah, go ahead and look it up. I think it is over an hour, but I don't think it's
I'm
much.
hoping that they made this the longest one, but I'm not sure.
You know, there's just so much that they're not going to be able to cover all of it, and if they try, it'll just end up being kind of superficial. So, you know, I mean, what becomes of Sansa? What becomes of the North? You know, what becomes of Beyond the Wall? Because of the Wall. I mean, these are all like important pillars of this world, and they're not going to be able to resolve all of them.
Same
Right.
length as this one, 79 minutes.
Okay. Yeah. So it's, you know, it's 20 minutes longer than an hour. Um, so I don't know, because, you know, is there going to be a final last war, you know, against,
No, but you know, I will say this: if you take the episode that's this long, it goes by faster when it's action, like in episode 3 and this one. But if it's the filler episodes 1, 2, and 4.
just 1 and 2.
Well, 4 kind of. They didn't have a lot of
Oh
action.
yeah.
at the very
Kind
end.
of, yeah.
It seemed like it felt longer because it was slow paced and it was character building. And the ones with the action, because it's action, it goes by fast. But even though it's longer, actually in
Oh,
length.
I didn't feel that way.
You didn't feel that way? Well, anyways, so you have the same length as this episode, but it's going to be obviously there's no more battles, but there's going to probably still be deaths.
So we don't know that.
Yeah, that's
don't
true.
know.
We don't. There could be some rebellions could pop up.
You know, I think one of the things, they made a very conscious decision with this episode that I don't disagree with on one level, which was that they made so much of this episode about what
What's that?
people's perspective was, you know, being down on the ground. You didn't see a lot of Danny doing stuff. You saw the dragonfire coming down, and you saw, you know, the people of the regular normal people of King's Landing, you know, trying to escape and getting burned.
Right.
And all of this, and so they made a very conscious decision to have so much of this episode told from their point of view,
And they focused on
at
kids
their
too.
level. Right. And the thing is that, and that's fine, but we didn't get a lot. I mean, that's part of the reason why I think, you know, John was a non-entity, Davos was a non-entity. They became devices in this
Mhm.
episode instead of it furthering their own character development, their own character arc. And so they were just, you know, sort of figures placed into the right part of the plot. And again, I wouldn't have a problem with that if we had a whole other episode about resolving those arcs. And right now, this has to resolve a lot of plot still.
Yep.
And they're going to end up having to choose plot over character, when what the real strength of Game of Thrones is, I think, is character.
I already predict that there's no way they can possibly end this series without a lot of controversy, because you
Oh
set
yeah, of course.
the bar so high. There's just no way. It's not like Endgame, where almost universally everybody 3 hours, like, you know, everything they did for Endgame, and you just can't.
Well, that's because they took the time. They took 3 hours.
Not
They're
just
only
that.
taking one, you know.
Well, here's
They
my
took
feelings. I
10
watch a lot.
years. They took 20 movies.
That's true.
Right. And Endgame was literally like 3 movies in one.
Yeah.
And that's why it worked so well, because each was done, you know, within an hour plus or so,
I feel as though,
or a little give or take an hour, and it just kind of it flowed well.
yeah.
And they, like Carl said, they took the time to make sure they did this correctly. And I am starting to feel like this is all a little rushed. And you know, maybe, and I hate saying this because I gave the episode a 10 and I loved it. Maybe the Battle of Winterfell shouldn't have been so fucking long. I mean, seriously.
It was a
You know?
really long battle. I mean, it was really long.
Right. You know, there's, or maybe they.
But I don't think my problem isn't with how long the Battle of Winterfell took. It's just that they should have done more than 6 episodes.
They should have done the 10 that HBO offered. But here's the thing. What I'm about to say goes by. I watch a lot of those reaction things. They're awesome. Like, especially that Burlington Barn in Vermont. Shawn Tank Top. He does this channel where they do.
Right, you told us about
I
it.
love it. Watch it. You can see there when they. I remember one part when Arya was about to attack the Night King, and all the people in the audience, especially the women, you should have seen their faces when they thought Arya was about to die. They were like totally traumatized until she actually won, and they were like, it was like I've never seen such shock, and like
I jumped up out of the bed and yelled,
so these
"Holy
people
shit!"
are invested in these characters. Now, no matter what happens, we all knew that everybody should have mentally known, obviously a lot of characters are going to die, even the ones you love. I think what's about to happen, and this is a prediction, it has nothing to do with the actual outcome of the story, but the fans. No matter what happens, one of the biggest characters that people have been flipping out about the possibility since last season when I watched these reactions, when Jamie was charging Danny's dragon on the field with that lance or whatever, and then Braun saved him. All the audience reactions when they thought Jamie was about to die, they were wigging out, especially the women, because he's a fan favorite for them. And they were losing their minds thinking Jamie was about to die. Well, he really did die. So I expect a large portion of the audience, just because Jamie's dead, doesn't matter how he dies, they're going to wig out because of that. Just the mere fact that he's dead.
That's short-sighted because that they haven't been paying attention because Jamie had a complete arc.
Everybody wants Cersei dead.
That's why I don't have a problem with it because Jamie was on an arc of redemption.
But not everybody's going to think of it like narratively like that. As far as
then people are dumb.
I agree. But people get emotionally attached to characters, and that's why
I understand. Yeah,
that's why we're going to get a lot of.
I get that, but I appreciate. There are shows that I appreciate for the characters, and there are shows that I appreciate for the overall story. For example, Walking Dead is a character study. Walking Dead hasn't had a great storyline since probably the second season, okay? But the characters are what keep people coming back to that.
Yeah.
When it comes to shows like that, as long as a character has a strong arc and that it's closed well, okay? I have no problem with the lost characters, especially in a show like this, where it's about war. So you have to expect that these characters are going to die. It's how the arc goes from beginning to end that it most concerns me. And if you're a smart viewer, that's what should really mostly affect you when it comes to the characters themselves.
I completely agree.
That's my opinion.
I'm just saying that based on observing the reaction.
Well, but you know what? It's like
emotional.
I pay reactions.
You always
like
put so much
stock into other people
on fan.
No, because it usually correlates to what we're going to start seeing for articles. That's what I'm saying.
Sure, and
I'm going to be the one that defends this.
A lot of articles in the last week that have just been proven completely and utterly wrong and baseless, and fan wanky and all of those things.
Right.
We're going to get like the Midnight Edge people saying whatever.
I'm not even talking about that far on the fringe. I'm talking about IO9 and Screen Rant and all these other websites that are they're pretty logical people, but they've been hyping, and it probably is for clickbait, but they were hyping all these theories like John's gonna be the Night King, and so and so's gonna do this, and
I never heard the John's gonna be the Night King thing, but
that's one I read today.
No, you're right, I did hear that one
today. That was exactly that.
Yeah.
And there's still dragons out there, and and we're not seeing anything unpredictable like that happen. And if we were going to, I think we would have seen it in this episode.
I do agree that there's a lot they have to wrap up. Now, what I like about the idea of this being 79 minutes for the last final episode is if they slow their roll and only have a few shocking deaths or whatever happening, they just through exposition. Okay, so one theme that's been consistent this season is you get your quieter character building moments, like example, Brienne getting knighted and all that stuff, which is great. If you can do something like that and only have maybe one or two shockers, but you do most of it as talk, character arc development, or wrap up, come to the conclusion, and then by the end of the episode, cap it off with an idea of what everything meant. They've got a lot on their shoulders for this next episode.
Yeah, and that's the biggest problem, I think.
I'm hoping.
With compressing this into 6 episodes.
Everybody's going to go worst finale ever. Like they compare other shows. I'm going to say this: no matter what they do, people are going to like Sopranos. We talked about this before the show. Like The Sopranos, the final episode. Raul didn't like the final episode. I loved it, and there was so much that years later people took out from that final episode, and the producer talked about it, David Chase, and it was when I realized it was from the point of view of Tony getting killed, and he explained it, and other people had already figured that out even before he had to explain it. I think you're going to find that the controversy of this final next episode is going to be as big. And HBO, it's HBO. It's a big series.
Yeah, but I don't think they have a Sopranos rule that they.
No, but I think that the way it's going to end, I think people are going to be debating whether it was a good or bad ending.
Look, the
years.
Sopranos ended. Here's the thing: the Sopranos got a little bit. I don't hate the final episode. I'm indifferent towards it. But the ending of the Sopranos ended basically with it's up for the audience to interpret what happens.
Well, David James actually explained later.
It's later.
Not.
At the time, he said it was deliberately.
Well, he talked about things like you won't hear the bullet coming. You know, they talked about that.
Yeah, that's all. Retconning.
Right, exactly. If
it's
not on screen, I don't take any stock in it whatsoever.
Ironically, you said not on screen because that's kind of weird about that episode. But anyways, go ahead.
Well, but there was the point was there was nothing that was to indicate that whatsoever. It was left entirely up to the audience to interpret on their own.
Yeah.
I don't think that's what the goal of this with this show is. Ultimately they do tend to spell things out for you. I mean, and they kind of the goal of the series has been, we're going to spell it out for you, and we're going to make you feel stupid for not having seen it come all the way.
Well, that's what I mean. It's like they're going to react to it immediately, but then it's going to be a lot of crap on the internet. But then as time goes on, like with The Sopranos, I think people are going to start going, in hindsight, it was actually pretty brilliant. But I think it's going to take that time.
I think it's going to be less like The Sopranos, like Lost. Because The Sopranos didn't build a mythology. I mean, they didn't.
Yeah, that's true.
And Lost did. They introduced all of these big plot things, and so is Game of Thrones. And unless they resolve them, people are going to feel unsatisfied.
Unless you're like me, and I actually love the finale of Lost. So
I was indifferent about the end of Lost, to be honest with you.
I loved it. I loved it so much. I loved it.
I was indifferent. I was like, whatever. It didn't bother me, but it didn't. I didn't go, oh, that's cool. That's clever.
How did you feel about the end of Battlestar Galactica, Shawn?
Loved it.
Alias, another JJ.
In fact, I mentioned it when it was the very first when I had my blog back in the day. The very first review I did was the finale of Lost. It was the very first article I ever did, and I actually brought up the Battlestar Galactica finale as well because I loved it for the same reasons. I mean, it was a matter of it completely upended what people's expectations were. And my thing about Lost was very simply that the whole point of the series that they finally revealed at the end that none of the shit mattered. The black smoke, the black smoke monster, all the mysteries of the island. That shit didn't matter at all. The only thing that mattered were those characters and the relationships they had. That was the whole point of the entire series. So, and that's what I took from it.
I told Shawn,
but it was so hard to get there. Because it was so not straightforward about it the whole way through that. But I don't see Game of Thrones going that way. I think Game of Thrones is going to spell it out for us exactly.
You know why I agree with you on this?
Going to end.
Is because the producers they've always talked about this in interviews. When they approached George R.R. Martin to win him over to adapt him and approach HBO, they were huge fans of the books. They were going crazy about the books. They wanted it so bad. And they had to prove themselves to George R.R. Martin. In fact, the test he gave them was they had to tell him who Jon Snow's mother was, and he got it right. So, I mean, that was the test. They had a long, 2-hour lunch.
Well, sure, but that doesn't really illuminate the show. Well,
what I'm trying to say is that I wouldn't compare them trying to just go, let's have a weird ending like this show and this show. Because they're working with George R.R. Martin. By the way, I talked about this before the show, but for the audience that doesn't know, it turns out he did finish not only the next book, Winds of Winter, but the final book, which I believe from what I've heard is the final episode's title, which is A Dream of Spring. And the reason I'm confident that what I heard is true is last season, end of season 7, the final episode was called Winds of Winter, which is the title of the book he's about to release. So they've done that before with one of the previous ones. They sometimes use the book titles as a season-ending title for certain reasons. And A Dream of Spring is the final book in this saga, and from what I heard,
Whoa.
that's going to be the
Hello.
title. That's going to not only be the title for the final episode, but it makes sense to me because you've had your winter and now you have the dream of spring and hope coming.
Yeah,
Anyways,
I'm sure.
so, but they worked with George R. R. Martin. They didn't want to. They knew they were going past his books, and he talked about this. And he said to in an interview and that he told them all of his plans and what he had going on. He wasn't finished with the book yet. They weren't going to just completely make up everything that there was going to happen after the books. They were going to go so that when the books came out, it wasn't going to be too far away. And then I found out he finished the books. Everybody kept saying, no, he can't finish the book. No, he did.
That totally confirmed, though. I mean, I see.
Yes,
an article.
it was in an interview with one of the cast members, the guy that played.
But
yeah, him.
That seems like a weird. That's not usually how news like that comes out.
I know, but I think he didn't realize he was giving something away.
Well,
sometimes that happens. They don't realize that, especially actors that are older and they don't. They're not into the whole what's spoilers and what's not thing. That sometimes they just say whatever and they don't realize.
But it's still.
I believe it because there was something else I heard a while back where it makes sense to me. Like he was working with them. If he was working with them and the plots were going to be very similar, think about it. HBO wouldn't want them to release it too soon because then the fans.
No, I mean that. I'm not saying it doesn't make sense. What I'm saying is, I haven't heard it from a source I consider sufficiently reliable to assume that it's.
All right, at this point, you're right. It's probably safe to say it's not confirmed, obviously. But I believe it's true, but we'll see. It makes sense to me, and also this guy said it, but we'll see.
I'll guarantee you this. If it's true, we're going to find out that probably about an hour after the episode airs next week.
I think you're right.
It's true.
Well, in the interview, this guy says it's going to be a month or two.
I did, and I heard Conan O'Brien filmed an after-show thing in Ireland in a castle that he kept talking about. A huge thing in a Belfast castle that they filmed ahead of time for after the final episode airs. That's supposed to be pretty awesome. So I'm looking forward to that. So this episode, I mean, the fans are going to have their reasons to nitpick why they feel character arcs didn't work out. They don't like the way Danny's turning into, the way she's doing.
She's been doing. I don't understand that.
Yeah, I mean,
this has been a long.
It just goes back to like people not liking. But here's the thing: the fans are experiencing what the characters are experiencing. The people who believed in Danny, I think that's the whole point. It's like like Vera said, I've seen dictators tyrants start off with great intentions, and then they just end up becoming this way.
Yeah, people are disappointed that the characters aren't turning out the way that they would have wrote them, which is a problem in every fandom that they have these expectations from they have these expectations of characters that they've come to grow and love, and they don't deal well with the fact when they don't work out the way they expected them to. I mean, look, we see it all the time in our various sci-fi fandoms.
Yeah. Well, that's the point. Like,
it's the same. It's the same type of fandom, though. I mean, let's be honest. There's not a whole lot distinguishing a fantasy fandom from a sci-fi fandom. Like, look, I've said repeatedly that you can take Game of Thrones, just take the whole story, and you can make it a Star Wars saga entirely. It's a perfect Star Wars saga. And I was thinking about that, all these fights, everything crashing down. I'm thinking with the King's End, I'm thinking of the Death Star coming down, and that final fight with the Mountain and the Hound. I'm thinking this is your final hero battle from Star Wars. I mean, this could all be place. So like the fandoms.
I would hardly compare the Mountain and the Hound to.
I think Raul wanted to say something.
I'm not saying the Mountain and the Hound particular. I'm getting
my point, Shawn?
I have, yes.
Okay, that is Game of Thrones in space.
I hadn't thought about it. It's very similar.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yep.
The creator of The Expanse, one of the creators, is in George R. R. Martin's circle of writers in New Mexico. He's his body man.
I'm not surprised by that. I mean, there's a lot of crossover in these genres is what I'm getting at, and there's a lot of crossover with the types of fandom. that and their expectations of
Let's
what.
start. We got to start wrapping up because we hit the 2-hour mark.
Yep.
So I mean, I would love to keep talking about, but let's
No, I gotta go.
next week is
my wife's hammering me.
all right. Let's get some final thoughts. Raul, what's your Raul, what's your rating?
My rating is a 9, solid 9.
Okay.
Very simple, very simple. I thought it was an excellent show that did subvert expectations, but in the way that pisses people off, which I enjoy.
Okay. And Shawn, you already said 10, right?
No, I didn't.
Oh, I thought you did earlier. What did you give this?
I was talking about the Battle of Winterfell. No, I'd give this an 8.5. I would give it an 8.5. I mean, which isn't anything to sneeze at, but it's there was a whole bunch of holy shit moments. But Carlos made some very good points about things that are kind of unsettling about the episode. So I give it an 8.5.
I'm going to give it a 10 because not just because of being like hyperbolic, but because I had 0 dings I could give on this episode. 0. And that's rare. Wow. Very rare. I loved every single minute, every single second, every single microsecond of every little thing they did in this episode. I had no problem with anything. I can't even pick one thing that I could think could have been done better. No, nothing. I loved every friggin'. I've been rewatching parts of the episode over and over.
I mean, look. I'll tell you what. The contrived rivalry between Euron and Jamie, that's enough to knock it to an 8.5.
But see, it didn't bother me enough to ding it. But I loved the way it was a one-sided fight. I loved the devastation. I didn't even mind that Innocence died because it fits the story arc of how Dany's becoming this person that Jon's shocked. Even though everybody said he's a useless character in this one, Jon's reaction to everything is going to define what happens next episode. So it was building up to that. So anyways, I give it a 10. I can't rave about this episode enough. I don't care what people say. This is one of those. This is probably the only episode in this entire season I will rewatch about 10 times in the next 2 days, probably.
You wouldn't watch The Long Night over again?
I've already watched it like twice. And what about you, Carlos?
Sorry, I'm not giving it more than a 7. Like I said, I think there was a lot to like, but I think so much of it felt unearned to me, or low stakes, or predictable. I still think the whole Mad Queen thing is unearned. I think it would have been a more dramatically satisfying story without her having to go crazy. I have a real problem with that.
I understand. I just feel like
I guess the thing that really, for me, it was so predictable. Everything unfolded exactly as you thought.
You could not have predicted, though, how easily she beat them, though.
That's exactly what I predicted.
But I liked that. Oh, you did?
Yeah.
I mean, it was gonna be that easy?
Because if they
with the
used
scorpions and what they did last episode,
the dragon the way they should have used the dragon last episode, this episode, it's exactly what I expected to see.
Well, that was my only thing. If you take out the scorpions,
when Tyrion says to Jamie, he's like, Jamie still is like, she could win, and Tyrion's like, no, she's definitely going to lose.
Yeah,
and he's right, and he's not the only person who says that in this episode.
Right. That's true.
So it was just a question of how, not if or when.
And Jamie should know. He saw her, what she did in that one battle where he devastated his army.
Sure, but he believes in Cersei, and he knows what the Scorpions have been able to do to one of the dragons and to their entire fleet of ships and all this, and so, but I didn't see anything in there that was like a surprise to me, and usually they surprise me. They didn't subvert any expectations. They fulfilled them, I guess, in a way that just because.
I think I just like the detail of how she committed the actions we all expected. I just like the attention of the detail and the horrific way that they made the horrors of war, like Raul pointed out earlier.
I gotta be honest. I think that was a bit of a part of a flaw. I don't think they illustrated that enough, to be quite honest. I thought they made here's the thing. They made a point to not show, and I'm not saying that I'm a fan of this, but they didn't show any little kids getting fried up. They showed, no, they didn't. They showed the after. Nope.
Oh,
They
we didn't
did
actually
not
see
show
her.
it.
Yeah, you're right.
That's well, and that's exactly my point, George.
Okay.
Is that we didn't see it, and it would have been far more impactful had they done that. Had they shown, you know, like I said, it sounds weird that I'm saying I wish they had shown little kids getting
Yeah,
fried
I know
up,
what you're
but
saying.
the reality of it is, it would have been more impactful. It's like they wanted. Nobody cares about a bunch of adults getting blown away by dragonfires.
There were a
Nobody
lot of
cares about
children
that.
in Gulf. We didn't see them actually burn. You're right. It was,
You didn't see any children engulfed.
yeah, the last kid with the mom. We saw that.
No, they didn't. They
I watched
pulled
it twice.
away. George, I'm going to tell you, go watch it again because.
Oh, wait a
they
minute. You're
pulled-
right. Aria went around the corner.
I know I'm right. They pulled
He went
away.
around the corner. Yeah.
She went around the corner, and the little girl ran back, and they took
Yeah,
the
you're
camera off her, and they did not show it.
Yeah, you're right.
You
It
know,
was like
you
last
know.
second, but they pulled it. You're right.
Yeah, exactly. I think what it comes down to is they wanted you to think that, but for me that was part of the failure of this is that if you want to make this impactful, then you should really show the horrors. I mean,
Go all
really.
in. Go all
Yeah,
in.
go all in. Right, and it's like it's almost like they went 75% of the way and didn't go all the whole way through, and so that's what was disappointing about that. That really, you know, I didn't feel like the emotional like pounding in my chest like I did in The Long Night at all during this episode. It was fun. The effects were great. The action was spectacular. There were a lot of stories that were tied up better than others. And but like I said, you know, it pulls me away from giving it a full 10 too.
Fair
Things
enough.
like that. So
All right. Well, we got one more episode to go. We got a couple of guests next week. But
Raul, did we get your?
yeah, we
Did
did.
we get your?
Did we?
Oh, yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Mine was very short and sweet.
Yeah. Short and sweet. To the point. All right. You guys can. Carlos, where can people find you on social media?
I am on Twitter at C Pedraza and at Axe Monitor, on Facebook in the Axe Monitor Facebook group, and on the web at axemonitor.com.
Shawn, where can people find you?
I'm at the Real Super Geeks, our Facebook group there. I'm at the Axe Monitor Facebook group, and that's pretty much it right now.
And Raul?
You can friend me directly at Raul Padrone in Facebook. I have Peter Baelish's Mockingbird. This is my symbol, and I live in Arizona.
All right. You can find us on Geeks_TR on Twitter and on The Real Super Geeks, like Shawn pointed out, on Facebook, and The Real Super Geeks on YouTube. And that's all linked together anyways. I want to end on Subspace Radio, subspace-radio.net on Mondays, and you can check the schedule for when, if you want to hear us on there. All right, I want to thank everyone for joining us. One more episode. It's going to be pretty awesome.
See what happens.
We'll see what happens.
Yep.
Anyways, only one can rule. Oh, wait, that's a different thing. That's Highlander. And, yeah, so I want to thank everyone for joining us, and we wish you good fortune in the wars to come, although I think the wars are pretty much over at this point.
We don't know that.
Well, we wish you good fortune in the rebellions to come.
Let's remember that we see a scene of her looking out at her army. They are splayed out in front of her.
And they look pretty happy. John doesn't look happy, and Arya doesn't look happy, but they look happy. All right.
Yeah, and that's a problem.
That is a problem. And you know what? We'll find out how the problems are solved the next time. Peace out, dragon lovers.